We'd like to tell you about some of the transformation going on at HSBC. And I'd like to start with just describing a little bit around the business that we operate. I'm sure many of you know about HSBC, and hopefully some of you are customers. We're a large international bank. We have banking operations in 70 countries. As a retail bank, we operate in 36 markets, and we're lucky to serve 37 million customers around the world. Here in the UK, we operate 4 different brands, so you'd know us as HSBC on the High Street, First Direct, Marks & Spencer Bank, and John Lewis Partnerships Card. We're also the largest, or one of the largest, international banks in China, and are experiencing some of the huge changes going on in that marketplace. Wolfgang.
So we're going to talk about the consumerization of banking. The behavior of people when they interact with banks is rapidly changing. And people are no longer necessarily going into branches to do their daily banking, but they use digital means. And as banks and as large banks, we have to support that. So my daughter, who's now 14, has had a bank account for a year, and she's not once set foot in a branch. And she does all her banking, sending payments to her friends from her mobile phone. And in fact, the mobile phones are very important platforms for digital transformation in banks because the prevalence of mobile devices has long overtaken desktop computers, and many banks now adopt a mobile-first strategy.
So I just want to build on that point around how banking is changing. It wasn't that long ago that we all received a paper statement in the post once a month. Perhaps we went into a branch or put our card into an ATM machine to check a balance. There were some recent stats came out here in the UK looking at how active customers use mobile banking apps. And the stat was that active customers are using their mobile banking app, logging in 36 times a month. So more than once a day, people are opening up their banking app, and we know exactly what they're doing. I'm sure all of us do this on a pretty regular basis. They're logging in, checking their balance, looking at transactions, maybe whether they've been paid or whether a payment's gone out, moving money and paying bills. And they're doing that incredibly frequently. When you look at what's happened in banking, the actual number of interactions with our bank is increasing. Customers are engaging more. It's just that the channel they're using is changing, with branch visits and contact center visits declining in most cases, and a huge growth in the number of online and mobile banking app usage. What that means for us at HSBC is we want to create great customer experiences regardless of how you want to interact with us. And so we've been working hard at bringing great digital propositions to our customers. We're also recognizing that what it means to be a bank is shifting too. So we are busy testing new ways of being a bank and putting propositions in front of our customers to see how they react. And let me give you a few examples. About a year and a half ago in the UK, we tested an idea called Nudge. Very simple. We're sending messages to customers to try and help them meet their financial objectives. And it's pretty basic stuff like, hey, it's Friday. You tend to spend the most amount of money on Fridays, and gauging how customers found that helpful. Turns out they find those kind of messages incredibly helpful. So we did a second test at the end of last year we called Smart Save, a second mobile app we launched. And in that one, we were testing the idea of safe to save. And we had a bunch of different mechanisms in there that trying to help consumers put money away when they had enough money in their account to do so. And again, have received some very positive feedback about that idea. In France, we've done a test of an aggregation app where we bring together different bank accounts, including HSBC, but also other companies, and we call that Personal Economy. And in Hong Kong, earlier this year, we launched PayMe, a person-to-person payment app, so people can load money, whether they're HSBC customers or not, load it onto a mobile device, and pay their friends. So how are we going about delivering this change? I mentioned we have many millions of customers. We have many millions of customer interactions every day around the world. We're also a regulated entity in all of those markets we operate in, and we need to keep abreast of the changing regulatory agenda in all those different markets. So we actually have a lot going on, just keeping, serving our current customer base and keeping up with the changes in the markets. The way we've actually delivered this is we've set up a new group called HSBC Digital Solutions, HDS. And we use HDS to bring together the different people we think it takes to build great digital banking propositions. So, who's in that group? It's people you'd expect, like business analysts, UI and UX designers, front-end developers, back-end developers, testers, ops, release management, the typical people you'd have in any team that's going to build digital products. But because we're a bank, we've also got in our cross-functional teams people from risk, from IT security, from fraud, from compliance, from legal. And it's this unit, or these units, that we're using as agile teams to develop these new digital products. It's not just, though, about bringing together people from around the bank and saying, hey, you're now part of this new unit called HDS. It's also about changing the kind of people we bring into HSBC. So over the past 2 or 3 years, we've been recruiting in different areas, in different places, and bringing on different kinds of talent. We've actually brought on a lot of people from consumer tech who have very little experience in banking, and we are having those people sit with people steeped in banking experience as a way to help us deliver these new banking propositions. So, how's it going? Well, I guess I'd say we're making progress. Last year in October, in Hong Kong, we launched our new banking app into that market. We now had monthly releases to that app and are bringing each month new features that our customers want, whether it's Touch ID, make it easier to access and log in, or areas that are very important for our customers like Global View and Global Transfers that lets customers with accounts in many markets look across in one place all their different balances. In March this year in China, we launched our new banking app there. And again, that's now on a monthly release cycle, bringing new features. And in that market, we've also got a WeChat integration that allows our customers to use WeChat, incredibly popular in China, to access balances and other account information. And then here in the UK, just last month, we launched a new banking app with First Direct. And again, that'll be now on a monthly release cycle of bringing new features to the marketplace. And we're not done. So I mentioned we're in 36 markets as a retail bank, and our plan over the next several months is to continue to roll out these new mobile banking and digital experiences across our different marketplaces. Wolfgang.
So building an app in general is something that is relatively straightforward, and there are lots of agencies around in London that can build an app. What I'm trying to persuade you of now is that building a banking app for a globally operating bank with very diverse customers is actually a different kettle of fish and requires some serious engineering, which is why Zuhlke Engineering have been brought in by HSBC to assist. The first thing that happens is a question of scale. So in the UK alone, HSBC has multi-million retail customers, and as Charles said earlier, they're in the habit now of checking their bank account on a daily basis. So there's a very significant transaction load that we have to cope with that requires some serious engineering. The next thing, where I disagree with the first speaker of this session a little bit, is that you can't do this all in JavaScript because a lot of the actual data is still held on mainframes that we need to integrate with using traditional message queuing systems. in asynchronous communication. And we need to do this in a way that it's highly performant. We need to have round-trip times of 250 to 500 milliseconds, all the way from the mobile to some business tier. We use microservices to the mainframe and back. The next challenge is that we cannot assume downtime. In a lot of banking applications, traditionally, it was possible to do upgrades over the weekend. That is not possible in a mobile banking app if you've got this many clients using it. It is truly 24/7, and we need to build the app because we also want to release continuously in a way that we can release the app, that we can make upgrades while the app is being used. And that requires some complex infrastructure in a cloud-based, private cloud-based infrastructure that can redirect traffic to nodes that are currently being away from nodes that are currently being upgraded to nodes that are available. The next thing is that there is potentially a lot of reputational damage that could be done if the security was compromised. So people trust us with their personal financial information and their financial details, and we have to make sure that the banking app and the integration with their back office systems is entirely secure. And we've invested a lot of time basically building some of the things that the second speaker in this session talked about into the app. So building this app is a major feat of engineering. We also are building a product family of apps to roll out into multiple different HSBC markets, and that adds complexity for internationalization purposes and localization purposes, and so on. So we've had a number of wins with HDS that I think are worthy of commenting upon. The first one is that HDS has actually ramped up reasonably quickly to a scale that it can now develop these digital propositions. It will soon be possible to open bank accounts without visiting a branch. And these wins required a scale-up that the bank has achieved by bringing in fairly diverse talent from not just the financial services industry, but more broadly from other industries too. We have succeeded in aligning the development approach across these different digital platforms by basically adopting the government digital services approach of talking about discovery, alpha, beta, and live processes with the different frameworks that are required. And that's, I think, another win, that digital is truly agile and lean, that we're in a process of measuring, we're in a process of discovering. So that's a good thing. And this will lead to substantial cost reduction in HSBC. Digital is funded out of a cost reduction program, and we are seeing the first signs of this. Charles.
Yeah, I think I'd close by saying for us, we've formed HDS as a way to help us accelerate the change. It's not for the faint-hearted. Keeping the existing bank and serving the existing bank's customers every day, and creating these new digital propositions and launching them in the market, sometimes in parallel, sometimes replacing, is definitely a bold and, as Wolfgang highlights, a bold ambition and has some unique engineering challenges. I would also say that we're hiring, so if anyone feels that they're up for the challenge, then please do come and get in touch.
And that's both of us. Okay, we have time for a few questions. Do you live a continuous delivery process?
We run on 2 weekly sprint cycles. We have what we call technical platform, which is our sort of path to live, pushing code from development into release. So I'm not sure of the standard for continuous, but it feels pretty continuous, and certainly a lot faster turnaround times than the bank's been used to traditionally.
How long did it take to implement a new mobile application?
Yeah, so I think this is interesting. So I'm sure there are many of you have built mobile apps. To actually build a mobile app is relatively easy, right? It's actually connecting it all the way through into the back-end systems. So some new mobile apps we've launched and built in 2 or 3 months. So one I highlighted, which was the Nudge app, where we were sending push notifications to customers. We built that in 2 or 3 months. Where we've got a more complicated integration, and when we're building new services off the back of it, that's where it gets more complicated, and that's when we get into quite a few months before we can push stuff out to customers.
So I think I'll take that one. So we didn't actually upgrade any mainframe because frankly the release cycle that's required for that would have killed us. What we did instead is to use a microservices architecture that has different kinds of services. The first one is basically a system API that maps the messaging and hides the messaging complexities from the mainframe. And then we had business APIs, experience APIs that actually provide the RESTful services to the mobile apps and other channels. This works fine. What kind of payments does a 14-year-old have to make? She travels on her own. She buys rail tickets with her card. She pays her friends. She pays things in her tennis club. So she does make a few payments.
So the biggest success story from HSBC's overhaul, I think the biggest thing for me is the cultural change that's gone on within the bank. So if you managing a 150-year-old bank used to doing things a certain kind of way, and then you bring in actually many hundreds of different sorts of people, and you adopt a different way of working, agile development practices, it's been a huge cultural change. It's still ongoing, but I'd suggest that is the single biggest thing that's feels like the most profound change at HSBC, and one that I think is going to set us up well for the next few years. Thank you.
Thanks very much.